Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Bible study. Today we're going to study about from servant to royal, and I have four characters from the Bible. I have Ruth, I have Joseph on the lower part, I have David in the middle, and I have Esther. So we are going to get through each one, and we are going to find out what marked them for coming from a servant to be a royal. I have Ruth from gleaning to honor. So pretty much, yes, Ruth was a Moabite that she came with her mother-in-law, and she came in the land of Israel gleaning. What is gleaning? Gleaning is when it's left. So she goes in the field of Boaz. She didn't know who he was. So she just ended up there and she's gleaning what means. She says, go back just one. In the upper corner, she's picking up every little piece of, I would say, barley or wheat whenever the season was. After the servants of Boaz, she's picking up every single one from the morning to the evening to make sure she will have enough to eat, her and her mother-in-law. Excuse me. So she's lower than the servant, I would say, because the servants, they get paid, and I believe they get fed throughout the day. They have to have a break and sit down at the shade and eat and drink. But she would not. She will just go from early morning. She will go behind them and she will get every little thing, and she will go home. And you got to process that. You got to get from the grains, you got to ground them and make bread or whatever to eat, her and her mother-in-law. So so what marked her specific? Why God had such a big hand on her? Since she was a Moabite, and Moabite were just against Jewish people. But for her, something she saw in her mother-in-law, who was a Jewish, she saw something more, that her family, that was they were following and had altars and all kinds of probably figurines, all kinds of gods. But her mother-in-law, coming from Israel, she had the God of gods, God Almighty, and something she saw in her, either something specific. And look what she says in Ruth 1:16. But Ruth replied, when her mother-in-law says, just go back to your family, don't come with me, I'm just going to go back to my land. And Ruth said, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. This is the last sentence. Your people will be my people. Your God, my God. So that last sentence, that affirmation, that statement, I would say that decree, she said, your people, which the people of Israel, will be my people, and your God will be my God. I do not turn back. I'm not going to my parents and serve those gods. I want to serve your God. And that marked Ruth from where she was gleaning. She was much lower than a servant. How low you can be unless you're a slave. But then she was much lower. She was the poorest of the poorest, I would say. But from where she was, she ended up marrying Boaz because when God heard that, loved her. And not just that, when you get favor with God, you get favor with people. And from gleaning, not just becoming a servant to get paid and have, she became an owner of all that field because Boaz was very rich. He had servants, he had a big house, as we know from the Bible. and marrying a rich man, she became rich as well. And not just that, I should say from the gleaning to royal, because she became, she was in the, she became, yes, I said right, she became in the lineage of Jesus lineage, which are royal family. So she became in the royal family lineage because she would not give God, will not give up on God, will not give up on Jewish people, which was her mother in law. She will not give, she will serve, she will help. She had a heart, and that marked her for um, the rest of her life. Let's go next. We have the shepherd boy, we have David. From shepherd to the throne, it was David. So he learned first, he learned how to be a shepherd, how to lead those animals, how to fight for these animals. And God liked him a lot. And you don't have to despair when you're in the position, in like a low position. Maybe you get a job as you have to clean, cleaning job. It's okay. Will be a time when God gets you from there to higher. Sometimes you have to get step by step to get to where you're supposed to be. He did not complain. He had all this time when he learned how to be a shepherd and take care of those animals, fighting for them. When a bear came or a lion, he would fight the animal with his bare hands, maybe with the slings, but he had two tools. It was a rod and a staff. Those two will helped him to fight the animals that came against, like the ferocious animals, to um, get snatch the sheep from his hands. He will fight. And now he wrote Psalm 23. While he was there, he wrote lots of psalms, and then when he became a king, from there to the king palace, he learned that God is like a shepherd for us. And he put God as a shepherd when we are the animals, when we are the sheep, because he knew how he was as a shepherd. And he wrote Psalm 23, like is very known. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lay down in green pasture. So when God is your shepherd, because he will go as a shepherd, his animals will lack nothing. He makes sure the animals lay in the green pasture, which is green, not dry, green. He leads me beside quiet waters because he knew how he was as a shepherd. And then he led his animals to a quiet water. It's how God does to us. Quiet waters, not a storm and not dirty water, or, it's a quiet, a stilling of the water, like a still, stay still, like peaceful, I would say. Peaceful waters. He refreshes my soul because your soul needs to be refreshed with the words of God. But as a shepherd, got his animals like that, he knows that God is more than a shepherd. He refreshes your soul. And God, as a shepherd, just say like he is our shepherd, he guides us along the right paths for his name's sake, because excuse me, because he's God Almighty. Of course, he guides you in the right paths. You're not going to guide, if you're a shepherd like David was, guide your animals in the wrong way, in the deepest way, in the darkest way, in the wherever, that will get lost. You got him the right paths, as he is like a shepherd for us. And now, even though I walk through the darkest valley, and probably at one point, even myself, maybe David as well, he walked in the darkest valley, which some translations say, even though I walk in the valley of the shadow of the dead, I fear no evil. Imagine when he's probably darkest valley when he was a shepherd was fighting those ferocious animals like a lion, a bear with his own hands. For us, it might be in the spirit. We are fighting those ferocious, I would say, spirits that will not capture our soul, that will not capture us. But when you fight, when you are in the war, you feel no evil because you know who is above. Because he says next, for you are with me, your rod and your staff. And he's using those two tools that the shepherd is using. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me because you use those to defend your animals. And then just like they comfort you because you'll be like in the comfort place. And as God does with us, the same thing. He wrote, verse 5, now it's like pretty much separation from the shepherd and with animals. And then he writes, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Before the enemy gets there, God is preparing you, feed you. Maybe you have to get a solid food with the words of God. It feeds you, it prepares you before the enemy gets there. And when he feeds you, sometimes in the presence of the enemy, he's keep preparing you while the enemy is there fighting you. He's giving you instructions, he's preparing you. It's a table is what I would say with food and all what you need to fight to win the battle. Okay? He won't let you. You anoint my head with oil because oil is pretty much symbolize the Holy Spirit. My cup overflows. My cup flows over. It's how much oil or how much you give me, how much you anoint me because your oil. And then he was anointed with oil when he was um, placed as royal by Samuel. He was anointed with oil to mark him that he was and is going to be a king. So he knew at that point he's going to be a king. Verse 6, surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Because he knows, we know that goodness and love will be because we are following God. We are like the sheep following the shepherd. And as you follow and then you obey, God will love you, and and David will be in the house of the Lord. Not necessarily a house, because he didn't build a house of the Lord. He built more like a tent. But you can be like David was in his quiet time, in his quiet place with the Lord, and he will give instructions and lead him from there, like what to do, what is going to be next. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, as long as you live, you need to dwell. Like you have to be in the presence of God to give instructions and to like be in your quiet and quiet place. I would say a secret place with God. Let's go next. We have from prison to leader, which he was from prison to the second in command in Egypt, below just below Pharaoh. But it took him. This was Joseph. It took him some time and preparation to get from that stage. And you think about he was sold. He became at one point he became a slave. And was brought to Egypt, and Potiphar bought him, and he did his best there till God he had to bring him to a different level. But not just that, he had to bring him in the palace. But in the palace, instead of being with the royal people there, he was brought to the dungeon, which would be like, I'll say, like you are the underneath of the palace somewhere. Nobody knows who you are. And but he was in the palace, but he was down below. And think about your dreams, that he had dreams. Think about your dreams. You think like your destiny is marked, it's marked that God tells you who you're going to be and what's going to be. You'll be a leader. You'll be above everybody else. But yet, you are in the palace, but you're all the way down in the dungeon. And sometimes it doesn't make sense, but it was for him, it was a time of preparation. And it taught him how to lead. So in Potiphar's house, he was managing like a business, all his business, he was managing that. In the prison, he had to put, now he didn't have a business in there. He was dealing with people with their dreams. He was helping people even in the prison, and was helping the the one who was leading the prison, gave him the, even though he was a prisoner, how to lead and how to help others. So he was helping others even though in the prison. So it was time of preparation to become who he was. But think about when you're in prison. Don't you think like, hey, I'm a prisoner. What is going to be for me? Like how low I can get. There's nothing much lower, I would say, like a prison. How low you can get. Like it's like the life could be like a roller coaster, but how low you can get the lowest. Like a prison can go much lower. And then what is going to be from there? Like if you get out, everybody says, hey, you were a prisoner. So you can get in depression big time when, because there was supposed to be something more, but yet you don't see it and you don't know where it is. And yet you're serving in the prison, you are in the prison. And what marked him like patience, when I says like, God, that's enough, like I had enough with this, look where I got. I thought you'll be like leading over everybody else, but look where I am. But God wanted him from Potiphar's house to get in the palace, so he was in the right place. He didn't know that. And what he marked him was, they were like the dreams he had. He was dreaming and had interpretations. It was the God's gift to him. And that throughout the time of, uh, I would say, a slave, then in Potiphar's house, and then again in prison, those dreams follow him. And then he will not have just those dreams. I know it because I have dreams myself. So I have dreams over the night. Sometimes in the week I have 3 4 dreams I remember. I have dreams all the time, but the one that really marked, they're marked by God, I remember them. And I say, wow, thank you, God, for telling me all those. And I know what's going on in the spirit and in the world in general, because God is revealing to me. And it's how revealed to Joseph. For sure he had pretty much, if not once or twice a week, he had dreams, and he knew what he was, where he was, and what he's supposed to do. So we are in Genesis 37, 5 to 8. Joseph had a dream, and when he told to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood above upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? That was the dream that God was telling him is going to happen. You just have to go in the time of transformation till you get there. It's not going to be easy, but hang in there. I'm your God. And he did. Let's move on, because we have Esther. From an ordinary girl to royal, she became a queen, as we know. And what marked her? I tried to find, maybe she's still in that robes that are more like royal family robes, because she's as an ordinary girl, she will not be dressed like that. Those are pretty much expensive. But she was marked by who she was, ordinary girl, but she was handpicked by God and put her to be a queen. And we all know she was Queen Esther. She had to go through time of preparation, from, just say, from this stage to that stage, and all 7 months of, all kinds of oil and all that. But she came to a specific time. God wanted her there. So when you go to the palace, what tells you this story? Yes, God gives you to be a royal, to be wealthy, to have all what you need. Don't start now drinking alcohol and get, all drunk, and have all kinds of, like I would say things that God would not allow you to have. Just think who put you there. Think who give you wealth. Like for her example, she could get there and she could just like party and all that, have like a good time. She was still connecting with Mordecai, and what was going on, she knew. She knew that um, she was there for a specific time, and we'll go here. But Mordecai say that the law was given that Jewish would be killed, and he tells her uncle, "For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jewish will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" She didn't want to get in that position. It was Mordecai what did she say? "I don't know about this, but I think it's God's will. I guess you should be. And, if you're elected to be a queen, it's God's will for sure." And it was, because she would not give out. She even put her life at stake, because in the royal, when the king is on his throne, nobody would come and bother the king because he's ruling. He's more like a judge on the throne. He's ruling. He's like more like a courthouse. Imagine you just go in a courthouse, in the room when the judge is ruling and he's talking, and you just go and walk in there, and he says, "Hey judge, I have something to tell you," which is not like there's different cases there. Is ruling, is thinking, is and you just go and interrupt that. And that was a punishment. Would be that person would be killed immediately. But she found favor, because when you have favor with God, God makes you have favor with people, and she had favor with the king. And king got his scepter, which is the one that without that you will be dead. And she touched the scepter and she says, "You are safe, Esther. Tell me what you want." So interrupted everything. Imagine he's ruling. Something was going on in the country. He's ruling, and then he stopped. The king stopped to ask what she wanted. That much of the favor. Okay. But she prayed with her maidservants for 3 days, as like everybody else. She would not pull herself out. She wanna save her people, and she did a big, I would say, in whole history, people are still talking to these days about her, and her being, I would say, obedient marked her big time. Let's make like a little conclusion here. What marked Ruth, David, Joseph, and Esther? So Ruth was marked, I would say, more like she was humble, very, very humble. Imagine to glean for your mother-in-law. People do not get along with their parents-in-law, mother or father-in-law. They don't get along. She would not give that lady starve. She would just go from the morning to the evening. She had no water, no rest. She would keep going. She would keep going. Just because it was not enough for one, I would say, steam of wheat to live on. She had to have more till you get those from the shelves, from and process that. Like the seeds is so small, to crush them, to make something out of it. It takes more than just, like more than a hand of it. So she had to go from the morning to the evening. Obedience. When Margaret, she say, "Your God will be my God," and God heard, because she made a declaration. You declare and decree. God heard and gave her favor. Okay. And she was obedient. Whenever the mother-in-law said, she was obedient to her mother-in-law. And she did exactly what the mother-in-law taught her. Forgiving others, she had to forgive her family as well. Maybe they put through who knows what it was, through all those altars and those their gods and all that. She had to forgive her family in order to move on. I'm not sure what happened there, but she didn't want to go back. David, he was obedient, like a shepherd is following like the sheep is following the shepherd. He had to be obedient himself, because he learned from his animals. Otherwise, the wolf will whenever snatch them if they go out of the shepherd's field. So he learned from that obedience, humbleness. He was humble. He will listen to his people. He will listen to everybody who was in need. He was he forgave others. He forgave Saul and all his whenever whoever was left from Saul put him at his table after Saul's family died. How much was the forgiveness? How about Joseph? Obedience. He was obedient to Potiphar, and he would not go out of, out of his, I would say, his where he's supposed to work. He would not go. Even the his wife wanted something else. He would not go out of that. He was obedient in whenever he was doing. Humble. You have to be very humble to end up in prison from where you were. He had to be so humble that he will still remain in God's work and listen to God. Forgiving others, he had to forgive his family, his brothers that sold him. When he came to the throne, it was below Pharaoh. He before he even he got there, he had to forgive everybody. His brothers, they need to forgive everybody. God will not put you from here there if you don't forgive others. So he did forgive every single thing. And then he was ready to be moved from here up there. Esther was obedient to God and obedient to her uncle Mordecai. Whenever he said, she says, okay, if I have to perish, I will perish. But she will give a try. It was very, very hard. Think about that. You may lose your life because you know what's at stake, you know the rules, you know the policies, you know everything, you know how the kingdom is ruling. But she she was humble herself from where she was, even though she was a queen, and in obedience she made a step. Forgiving others, she had to forgive Haman because otherwise she would not be able to advance in her life. So she had to forgive Haman for what he did and even pulling on her, trying to save his life. She had to forgive everybody else. And it's how she moved and around ahead. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy it. I enjoy it very much. And till next time, I say goodbye. Goodbye now.